Mark chapter 13 and verse 1. And as he, meaning Jesus, went out of the temple, in other words, he went to church. One of his disciples saith unto him, Master, or you can say teacher or rabbi, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here. Now, these are country folks, all right? And they were quite impressed with these beautiful buildings. So they were just looking around, and this particular disciple here was just showing, hey, Jesus, check this out. Check that out, right? This is Jesus's response. Verse 2. And Jesus answered, said unto him, seest thou these great buildings? In other words, have yourself a real close look. You look at them. You see all these buildings right here? There shall not be left one stone upon another. In other words, it's all going to be turned to sand. It's going to get leveled. And the documentation of that is just before Jesus shows up in Revelation chapter 11, where 1/10 of the city fell instantly by an earthquake. There shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. In other words, Jesus is saying, listen, you can admire these buildings, but I'm telling you, there's going to be a day when this place will be leveled. Now, of course, that piqued the curiosity of the disciple. So, of course, let's continue. Verse 3. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, over against the temple, Peter and James and John and Andrew asked him privately. These are his disciples. Verse 4, tell us. In other words, hey, you made quite a profound statement there, Jesus, and we want to know. So they said, tell us. When shall these things be? In other words, when is it that these buildings are going to be turned to sand? When are they going to be leveled? And what shall be the sign when all things shall be fulfilled? When all this is going to happen? How do we know it's coming to a close? When this age, this second earth age, will end. How do we know? We need some clue here, Jesus. Tell us. Verse 5, Jesus is going to answer. And Jesus answered and them begin to say, take heed. That means be careful. Look out, be careful. Lest any man deceive you. Now, he wasn't talking about some average Joe on the street. And he wasn't talking about a situation where, let's say you go to the bank to make a withdrawal and the bank teller may slip a $20 bill out of your withdrawal money. Oh, no. He was talking about your so-called muckety ducks, the pastors, so-called prognosticators, men and women who claim to purport and teach God's word, but they never quite get around to doing it because they're too busy putting on their own agenda, and God's word gathered dust. And people are spiritually starving for the nutrients of our Father's words to flow on the taste buds of their minds. It's a serious thing. Now, I would love to go through this entire chapter because it's beautiful, and at the same time, it's Jesus's warning to us about the 7 things that will transpire in the end, which are the equivalent of the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, the 7 vials that you read about in the book of Revelation. But just to expedite time, I want you to drop down to verse 17. This is one more of the things that Jesus warned about, that we read about in the book of Revelation, that I said Jesus mentioned. Here we go. Verse 17. But woe. Now, when you see a woe, that's not a good thing. But woe to them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. In other words, in the days that the Antichrist show up here, pretending to be Jesus, putting on his lightning show, pulling a David Copperfield and a Chris Angel, calling lightning from heaven and people oohing and awing over it. He's telling you, woe unto them that are with child. Now, there are people who get frightened about this and they question it. So what is Jesus saying? Is he saying that we're not supposed to have children in the end time as we draw closer to the end? No, 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 no. First of all, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 to 28, God told the children that he created, and by the way, he created all the races on the sixth day, right there in Genesis chapter 1. Different subject, that's just in passing. He basically told them to be fruitful and multiply. Okay? Children are a blessing. There's nothing woeful about that. There's nothing wrong with that. I want you to kick your mind in spiritual gear now, and as I will explain this verse to you completely. When Jesus said, woe unto them with child, them that are pregnant, in other words, those that are, remember, the subject is the end times, when the Antichrist is here. So in other words, those who are spiritually impregnated in their minds, who claim to be even Christian believers, staunch churchgoers. Every week, they never missed a week of church. But because the pastors are not teaching God's word, the audience are biblically illiterate. And because of their ignorance, they mistake the fake Jesus for the true Jesus and went off worshiping him when they were supposed to be spiritual virgins, waiting for the true Christ to return. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you something. No, actually, before I ask you that, let's finish the verse. A little bit more explanation. Woe unto them that are with child and give suck in those days. Let me ask you a question. If you went away for a while and you came back and saw your mate suckling a child, if it's a man, he's holding a nipple bottle to the child's mouth, feeding him or her. Or if it's a woman, she's literally feeding the child from her breasts. Let me ask you a question. And you know that you weren't pregnant, or if you're the man, you know that your wife was not pregnant, and you came back and you saw this mess. What does that mean? That's right. It would mean that he or she is unfaithful to you. They went with someone else. See, God teaches in a very simplistic way where people can understand if they strain off the fluff and just get to what God is saying. In other words, Jesus has been away for now over 2,000 years. And he says, look here, when I show up in the last days and I see somebody suckling a child, in other words, spiritually got impregnated and nursing along Satan's work, doing his bidding, hey, woe unto them, because I won't be happy. You see, if you've read the book of Matthew chapter 25, where it talks about the 10 virgins speaking spiritually. 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. See, they were supposed to show up and meet the bride. You see, you and I, spiritually speaking now, we are the bride of Christ. He's coming back. There's supposed to be a wedding taking place. He is the bridegroom. We are the bride of Christ. You understand what I'm saying? Keep it spiritual now. Okay? And if he comes back and sees you suckling a child, nursing along a child, how do you think he's going to feel? I mean, you would be angry, and that's just saying the least. It's not good. You understand? You belong to Jesus. You stay pure. You stay a spiritual virgin, and you wait for the true Christ. Don't receive the mark. Actually, it's almost impossible to deceive a person that is well informed. You can't deceive them. You can't pull the wool over their eyes. They know the truth. And that's why I'm dedicating my time. I'm taking this moment so you and I can study together and grow, because I notice that a lot of people are faithfully going to church, but they're not being taught God's word. They're biblically illiterate. The problem is they think everything is fine because, at church you can have a song and a dance and a hooting and a haw and a jumping here and all about the place. What are you jumping about? Are they jumping about the fact that they understand God's word and they have the knowledge of God's word? Or are they just doing it out of habit? Because this is what we do to prove that we're Christian, to prove that we're believers, to prove that we're saved. You dance because you know this word, the Bible, and it makes you dance because you know we have the victory and Jesus never fails. You dance because Satan can't touch you. He's been given the strict command of our Father. Don't you dare lay a finger on them who know the truth. And like I said before, previously in an episode or two, if he ever breaks that rule, if he ever not adhere to it, all bets are off. God will peel back that heaven like a scroll and come down here and raise him 5 and give him 20. It's over. You had better be proud to be a Christian. And I hope you're getting what I'm saying. I hope you're understanding it. Our Father's word was meant for you and I to understand. Not just a pastor, not just a bishop, not just a reverend, not just somebody with some fancy title. See, that's why I don't go for titles. I'm just plain old Jason. That's who I am. I don't want a title, don't need a title, don't care for a title. What I care for is every time you and I study God's word, we're on point. We know this book. Now, you don't have to memorize the whole book, but at least you should have a working knowledge of God's word. I personally memorize as much as I can because I see the need for people to learn and study God's word. That's why I do it. And for the sheer pleasure of learning our Father's word. That's why I do it. It's a joy and a pleasure for me. I could stay in this book and read it all day, never get bored. That's just me. But you and I are studying together. Let's be Bible students together. Let's be Bible scholars together. You and I are equal. And we belong to our Father. And he loves us. And this is his love letter to you and I. I hope you're enjoying our study so far.